Mirror's Edge originally came out in 2008 for the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3. While I was only 6 years old at the time, I still have vivid memories of my cousin playing the game, and the visuals absolutely blew me away at the time. Ironically, I haven't gotten around to playing it in full until recently, mostly because the game and its sequel are both massively discounted on Steam, but regardless, we're going to talk about how well the game stands up for being 12 years old. Let's take a look.
Hey guys, I'm Chris, the editor for this video, and you may notice the colors shift because the TV in the back was causing the camera's white balance to go all whack, so we've learned our lesson. We're going to set the white balance manual from now on, but enjoy the video.
Whether you're here to find out if Mirror's Edge is worth picking up during the Steam sale that's occurring at the moment, or its months in the future, I'm going to cover all of the bases today. Keep in mind this game is not new by any means, so much of what I'm about to say today has been said before, but I'm going to do my best to focus specifically on how well the game stands up for being 12 years old. On to the pros. This should go without saying, but Mirror's Edge looks absolutely stunning for being as old as it is. From its fairly impressive dynamic lighting to its detailed cityscape, a clear portion of the game's budget was spent on its visuals, and I think that was a great choice. This was the main thing that originally roped me into playing the game, and I'm sure it's the same for many others. Mirror's Edge truly provides a world full of detail that I thoroughly enjoyed exploring the entire way through. The parkour in Mirror's Edge is amazing. Sure, the controls do take a little bit of getting used to, but as the game progresses, you go from having to be directly guided on how to do something extremely simple to being able to pull off complicated maneuvers solely based on intuition. The only criticism I could see the game's parkour getting is that you can't move around while in the middle of the air, but the game's movement is grounded more in reality, and you can't exactly air dodge in real life. However, though I did like the parkour, I do still wish that there was a little bit more variety throughout the game. You don't learn any new moves or encounter vastly different set pieces. The game just kind of rinses and repeats the same formula after the first few chapters, which is for better or for worse. Regardless, I still want to stress how great it feels to pull off a bunch of complicated moves in succession of one another and get your intended outcome. This leads me into my next point, the game's massive replayability. Though I've only played through the main game once, I can already see how replayable it is. Content creator Led had actually made a great video on this earlier this week, so I highly recommend you check out his video after this one. But long story short, Mirror's Edge's enjoyment value actually has the potential to increase with additional playthroughs. I'm going to delve more into the reason why when we talk about the game's cons, but essentially it has to do with your ability to immediately understand the predefined parkour routes throughout the game, so it becomes less of a puzzle and more of a test to see if you can pull off certain moves. I should also mention that there are dedicated time trial and speedrun modes, which give you a distinct reason to keep playing the game. One last thing that I should mention are the suitcases. These are the only collectible in the game, and they're scattered across obscure locations throughout it. If you're not into speedrunning, these are another thing that may push you to replay the game. Anyways, that's all I have to say about Mirror's Edge's replayability, but before we move into the cons, make sure to leave a like and subscribe if you're enjoying the video so far. Game reviews are something new that I've been doing on the channel, and I'd love to see if you guys are enjoying watching them as much as I do making them. Either way though, let's move on to the story. Mirror's Edge definitely isn't a game that you seek out for its story, but its plot actually slightly exceeded my expectations. I ended up really liking the world building and the whole concept of the runners being message carriers in a society full of censorship. Other than that though, I felt that the actual events that took place throughout the game weren't the most interesting, but they were enough to rope me in, so I guess it succeeded. Combat is the weakest link in Mirror's Edge. The gunplay is so laughably bad that I don't even feel the gameplay you are watching right now adequately reflects how bad it is. I mean seriously, in a game centered around parkour, you can't even sprint while holding a gun. But that's just the start of it. There's no inventory system, so you can't store guns for later. There's also no way of reloading or even checking how many bullets are left in the one clip that you get. So combat essentially becomes a slog of killing an enemy, dropping your weapon, taking theirs, and having to do that all over again. One other major criticism that I have with the game is that in some situations, it's entirely possible to outrun the enemies, aka the blues. This leads to some chase sequences that work pretty damn well and add a needed sense of urgency to the game. The problem is that you almost never know whether you can outrun the blues or you're required to engage in combat with them. This goes back to what I was saying earlier. It's super annoying your first time through the game, but once you know which areas you can just run through and which you're required to fight through, I'm sure this becomes less of a complaint. Overall, it was just really frustrating to me when I've played other parkour games like Celeste, which are able to add pressure to their platforming in much more inventive and forgiving ways. Mirror's Edge lacks progression. The game's story advances as you trek further through it, but you don't learn any new moves and new mechanics are rarely introduced. That being said, the parkour does become more challenging and the combat becomes, well, more frustrating, but those are about the only things that change. Overall, it's very formulaic, which makes for very fun speedruns, but not a great first time experience. Shit. Please don't tell me I have to do all that combat again. God damn. This is something that I've seen the community split on. Mirror's Edge features a number of 2D animated cutscenes that I didn't feel meshed too well with the art style of the rest of the game. In my opinion, they're just way too cartoony, and they look like something out of Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends, which is cool, but it doesn't fit with the oversaturated aesthetic of the rest of the game. All in all, yeah, they're well animated, but these would have been a lot better if they were replaced with something else. My only other criticism is that the character animations can come off as a little bit clunky. The models look great, but if any polish is missing artistically, it's here. This is a smaller yet still valid criticism. Whoever picked out the controls for this game has never played an FPS game in their life. Thankfully, you are able to change the binds for everything, but by default, right click is the button to pick up and drop weapons and F is to scope in? What? Just hear me loud and clear, if you pick up this game, before you do anything, change all of these controls. So I've been pretty tough on this game, but it's out of love. I really like platformer games, and Mirror's Edge did a ton of things right or I wouldn't be making a video on it. Playing the game felt like being in a movie to me, and I really enjoyed my time playing it. That being said, if you're watching this video while the Steam summer sale is still going on, this is a brain dead must buy if you even remotely like parkour games. However, if the Steam sale isn't going on at the moment, I'm not sure if I could recommend the game for the price tag of $20, especially when the game's sequel is the same price. Personally, I have not purchased Mirror's Edge Catalyst yet, but from what I've heard, it's just basically the original game but better. It maintains the same formula of doing some parkour, running from the blues, and engaging in some light fighting, but I've heard that it handles combat a lot better, thank God. So if both games are priced at $20 in the future, I would look into Catalyst first. Anyways, that's all I have to say. This has been a deep dive into Mirror's Edge. Thank you so much for watching. The next game I have my eyes set on playing in full and writing a formal video review on is Hylix 2, which is a surreal exploration type game with some light JRPG elements. So if that sounds interesting to you or you have other recommendations, be sure to leave a comment down below. But anyways, I'm Aaron, and we'll see you next week.